So one thing that's been lacking for I'd probably say the past 3 years of my life is that although I've technically finished my hifdh, as in like I've technically memorized the whole Quran. I say technically because if I were to recite it right now, um, especially like the last 15 or so parts, the last 15 or so ajza, I wouldn't be able to go that far without making a lot of mistakes. So like on paper, I've actually gone through and memorized everything. At my peak for each juz, sure I could recite it, but holistically, I wouldn't say like hifdh is solid, and that's been something that's been on my mind for a while. And increasingly, I've gotten more and more kind of disappointed in myself that I've allowed myself to go this far. I mean, I finished my jaza, right? And because of the way I did it with my sheikh, he didn't really test me with previous stuff that I've already read. So it was more like, let me just prepare this juz, and then once it's done, there's no incentive for me to really go back and review it. Now, obviously, I'll still review, but my review wasn't kind of strict enough so that it would actually stay the way I read it to my sheikh, right? So it's kind of gone to the point where I want to use this summer to really lock in and kind of lock it down, right? Actually have it memorized. So the general goal I've set for myself is that every juz, by the end of it, every juz shouldn't have more than 10 mistakes. That does seem like a big number, but especially with the last 15 juz or so, that'd actually be a pretty solid goal, so that any given juz I could recite with only 10 mistakes, which means that if I just kind of review it once or twice, I could probably do the whole juz with like not even 2 mistakes. So that's kind of the goal that I set for myself. The reason I'm making this video to begin with is just accountability. Uh, I guess the point of this channel is really to show like progression in my life, where I am in different aspects of my life and my goals, and that's not only financial, it's not only business wise, it's also hifdh wise, which is a pretty large part of my life. In fact, I'd say I probably spend more time working on hifdh than a business or work in general. So it's a pretty substantial part of my life. Um, Anyways, so here's kind of the protocol that I set up. I think this would work, inshallah. So here's how it's going to start. There's going to be 3 different sessions throughout the day where I'm reading / reviewing, or / rememorizing. Right, so 3 different sessions. They all should be roughly around the same time. So the first session is going to be reviewing 10 pages until I can read them all on tartil with no mistakes. So this is not going to be a review where I just read. It's going to be, let me actually lock in page by page and make sure I can do each page with no mistakes. So that I estimate would take around 40 minutes if I read each page like twice / 3 times. It'll probably take around 40 minutes. So that's kind of the heavy review section of it. That's kind of where I'm like locking in, kind of linking the differences, all the mutashabihat, all that stuff, making notes in my mind like, oh, it's actually this, it's not that, instead of the previous approach that I used to take, which is more passive, just reading it as much as possible until I kind of have it in, I don't know what you would call it, kind of the memory where you're just, it, but you don't know it by like thinking about it. It's more like it just naturally comes. That is somewhat beneficial, except when there's mutashabihats, because then you don't know how to differentiate between them. So that's the first session. That's going to be the first session in the day. Yeah, it should take around 40 minutes. The second session is going to be the last 20 pages that I've put through the previous session. So once a set of 10 pages graduates, as in I could kind of read it with no mistakes on tartil, it's then put through the second cycle of review, which happens on the next day, the second session, which is basically me reading the past 20 pages. So because I'm doing 10 pages a day and I'm reading the past 20 pages, every page actually gets 2 days of this. So for example, let's say I read pages 1 through 10 today. Tomorrow, I'm going to review pages 1 through 10. Let's say I read pages 11 through 20 today. Tomorrow, I'm going to read pages 1 through 10 and 11 through 20 together. So the reason I do this is to kind of do more spaced repetition. I'm not just reviewing something and then sending it on to my long-term kind of khatma. It's more, let me gradually move it there, kind of solidify it even more. So that's the second session in the day. Second session in the day is going to be reading the past 20 pages. And then the third session is going to be my usual khatma, but there's going to be a difference. If the khatma that I'm doing, if the pages have been put through the cycle that I already talked about, it's graduated through the 20 pages, then I'll read it exclusively on tartil, and I'm not allowed more than 10 mistakes per juz. if I make more than 10 mistakes, then I have to move that set of 20 into the top of the queue so that the next day I review it again. This makes more sense in my mind. I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm eloquently explaining myself, but here's the way I want to think about it. Let's say today, the 10 pages that I did were, let's say pages like 300 through 310, right? And then that night, I reviewed let's just say pages 100 to 110, but I made more than 10 mistakes. So tomorrow, I'm not going to do pages 310 to 320. I'm going to prioritize pages 100 through 110, and then the day after I'll do 300. Actually, I'll do 100 because I'm doing 20, then I'll do that juz. And then the next day I'll continue with my normal. So that kind of incentivizes actually focusing and not locking in and not looking past mistakes, because then I don't want to keep getting held up by like previous ajza that I haven't focused on that well. So yeah, that's kind of the protocol. It makes sense to me. I feel like with the time commitment and everything, I could do it, inshallah, and it would work. I have the tools, I have tartil, I have the time. This is going to require 3 40-minute sessions a day, which I've done in the past, and I can definitely do. I just need to lock in with my sleep, because I've been sleeping a lot after Fajr, even though I'm trying to wake up like maximum I'll sleep. But the goal is, this is kind of a tangent, but because Fajr is pretty early, I have to wake up at 4 a.m. It's hard for me to get, it's impossible actually for me to get 7.5 hours because of the time for Isha and everything. So the best case I've found so far is to sleep 6 hours, and then depending on how I feel, maybe I'll sleep another hour and a half or so, or maybe I'll just firm it and then take a nap later. So far I've tried that, and then I've tried to sleep an hour and a half, but for some reason I just keep sleeping, and I found it very difficult to get up. In fact, today, like, I slept for 6 hours, and actually it was more like 5.5. And then after Fajr, I slept until like 9 a.m. from 5:30 until like 9 a.m. So 3.5 hours. And I didn't feel too good waking up either. That's kind of a tangent, but it was my channel. I can talk about whatever I want. The reason I mention this is that if I wake up at, let's say, 7 instead of 9, bro, that's 2 hours. It's kind of all the time I need for this protocol anyways. So yeah, it makes a big difference. Other than that, if I kind of do an estimate, I should probably do that. I'm doing 10 parts a day, let's say 6 times a week. So I'll just say I'm reviewing 3 parts. Oh, that's it then. Let's say I do 3 parts a week, and then I miss out 3 weeks because of travel or whatever, and I have like 16 weeks. Should just do this. Math is simple. I need 10 weeks. Yeah, I'll finish this in 10 weeks. Which I feel like with all the delays due to, repeating parts and also traveling and whatever, I'll probably be done by the end of the summer, inshallah. So yeah, that's one of the goals that I have for the summer, to like solidify my hifdh to the point where I could like at least recite any page I want. And yeah, sure, maybe I'll make a mistake, but that's fine. Like right now, if you tell me to recite like Surah Fussilat, for example, but I'll be honest, I wouldn't make it past like the first 3 ayat without making a mistake. Now that's kind of an extreme example because the hawamim are very difficult, at least for me specifically. Most of the majority of the ajza that I have memorized are like, they're fine, they're not that bad, but hawamim specifically. But even then, like, I need to lock in. Anyways, that was the first goal. The second goal is to finish Tuhfat al-Atfal. By finish, I mean kind of learn everything, like all the theory and whatever in more depth, and then get an ijaza. And then Ibn al-Jazari, his Manzuma, I feel like I could also finish that. It just depends on like how fast I can finish Tuhfat al-Atfal. I know Jazari is a bit more in depth, and it's 100 abiyat versus Tuhfat al-Atfal, which is 60. But if I finish Tuhfat al-Atfal within like the next month, I'll have like 2 months to memorize Jazariya and all that. So I think those 3 goals will kind of solidify stuff and really set the foundations for me to delve into different qira'at, start teaching, that type of stuff. So yeah, those are the goals that I have for the summer. I haven't made a video in a while just because there hasn't been much going on, to be honest, and I guess I need to stay more accountable and actually lock in that sense. But yeah, I'm gonna have to leave now because it's 11:25 and I don't know how crowded it gets, and it's 40 degrees outside.